So our topic is stop being authentic. Now, Lianne, I want you to stop being authentic right now.
No, you stop being authentic, Karen.
We'll see how that works. And the reason we're talking about this is because the Harvard Business Review wrote 2 articles within the last few months on authenticity and the problems that it creates for leaders and for other people. And then also Forbes magazine picked up on it also and wrote an article about the same topic. And I was thinking, well, it would be great to curate this for my business storytelling curation. By the way, my company is Just Story It, and I'm a professional in the field of business storytelling and have been doing it for a long time. And you can find me on LinkedIn, and also you can check out my website at juststoryit.com. And Lianne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I'm Lianne Picot. I'm a story coach. I worked in the nonprofit sector for a very long time and started my own business when I realized how important story was to the world and to me. So I help organizations to increase their engagement internally and externally with story. And I also have a radio show called Story Powered, which you can find on the Voice America Network, Business Network, where I speak to clever people like Karen about story. And it's a lot of fun, so tune in.
Yeah, great. It's a wonderful show. You bring fabulous guests on there, and they share all kinds of wisdom for everyone who's interested in business storytelling, wants to learn how to use it better. And we'll talk more about some other resources we have available for people at the end of our hangout here. But right now we wanted to dig into these articles and talk about them because there were some real problems, some real issues that came up for us as we were reading them. And we thought, wow, this deserves a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you want to tell everybody what the articles are, Karen?
Sure. So the 2 from Harvard Business Review is this first one. It's stop being, or by being authentic, you may just be conforming. So it's about one of the problems of authenticity. And there's another one called the authenticity paradox. And you can simply Google these or hop onto the Harvard Business Review website and grab these articles. And the other one from Forbes Business Magazine was this one, was how authenticity can keep professionals from growing into effective leaders. And these were all published in January and February of this year, 2015.
And they're great articles to look at in terms of digging into authenticity, which I was really happy you invited me to talk to you about it. Because although we're saying stop being authentic, there's a little tongue-in-cheek there. So it's nice to dig into, because some of those articles we both experienced as a little neglectful of the wider understanding of authenticity, I think.
Right. So we're not here to make fun of the authors themselves. We're here to talk about some of the concepts they shared and hopefully add our own insights into what we think is going on and bring some additional clarity to the work from our perspective, which is from the perspective of business storytelling, where authenticity is like huge. It's very critical in order to be an effective communicator. But let's do this first. Let's talk about what a definition of authenticity is. And so I dug into my Webster's dictionary because I find it more complete than what we can get online sometimes. And so I wanted to share with you a couple things that I found. So I'm going to read from the dictionary here. All right. Well, authentic is to be worthy of acceptance or belief. It's something that's not imaginary, it's not false or imitation, and that it is also akin to the words authentic, of course, genuine, veritable, bona fide. So it means being actually and exactly what is claimed. So I think that's an important distinction. It also implies being fully trustworthy, which is another fact or another piece of authenticity that is critically important that the articles didn't really address. And I think that's about it in terms of the definition that I think is important to bring out for our discussion today. Anything else that strikes you about the word authenticity or what it means to you, Lianne?
Yeah, you know what, Karen, I think that it's, as you were reading the definition, it makes me think about, you know, we always say, everybody who works in stories says that it must be true. So there's a kind of a bottom line in storytelling, which is that it needs to, authenticity is crucial, because when we say things or when we tell stuff that isn't true, people can tell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing to talk about authenticity and what it actually means versus what the perception is.
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the things that I found the articles were doing were confusing a few things together. And one facet of the discussion that they paid attention to was this notion that sometimes when we are being authentic and we find ourselves in a new situation, we will default to our familiar behaviors.
Right.
And what to me was happening there is that there was some confusion starting to creep in between what is a learning cycle and what is the change cycle.
Right. Yeah, nice.
And that understanding how we learn and then understanding how change actually happens both individually and for a group or an organization is really critical. And sometimes authenticity really doesn't have much to do with it. It's really about, are you aware of where you are in your own personal learning process and where you are in the change cycle, right? The cycle of transformation that is occurring at that particular time for you. So what do you think?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that, again, because the piece that you're referring to, and I noted it in the article too, which was around, it wasn't addressing the issue of change. It was addressing the idea that, like you say, we always go back to what we want personally. And who we are personally, and that's somehow a problem. And I think that there's, like you say, there's two different things there. One is that as a person, I am ever changing yet not changing. So there are things that I bring along with me. And, you know, I like the quote, wherever you go, there you are, because it's true, as I find as I get older, and I keep thinking that all of a sudden, magically, one day I'll wake up 40 pounds lighter and with blonde hair and really great teeth. It's still me, which is just fine. But it's kind of that piece around bringing yourself to every stage of life and every stage of your leadership and being and acknowledging what that means. And I think that, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy about business is this thing that we want to not be human.
Right.
And as humans, we are ever evolving. We are ever changing. And so there may be things that you bring that are core to you, but if they're values and if they are things that are important to you, there's nothing wrong with that. And to speak from that place is very powerful. And that's why it works.
It is very powerful. And I think the task of all great leaders is their ability to be self-reflective, right? Mm-hmm. Which is all that I've learned up until this point still valid? Or in this particular situation, do I need to stretch? Is being required to learn new things? And how do I do that really well? And can I leave behind some of my places of feeling comfortable? Maybe be not so comfortable for a while, but because I know myself really well, I'm willing to be more open to change. And So that is actually radical authenticity.
That is. Well, and it's funny you say that, Karen, because you're actually saying exactly. It's funny because the articles were kind of saying that we become comfortable, so therefore we don't we stay in our one story. And in actual fact, getting to know yourself and sharing some of yourself is actually much harder, much less comfortable for a lot of us, who, especially for leaders who want to be seen as experts, who, you know, people challenge their decisions all the time. And so it is important, like you say, is that self evolution. But I also think too that the piece around what you were just talking about is around that knowing yourself. And if you do really know yourself, then you know more about the beliefs that you bring that maybe aren't, that needs to change, or that you're trying to learn more about, or to, so, you know, it's funny to think that authenticity is about being stuck, when in actual fact, it's the other way around.
That is so true. That's why I call it radical authenticity.
Yeah, it's a great term.
Because we typically think of authenticity as, oh, this is who I am, right? Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Or this is who I am and this is who I'll always be, when in fact the nature of being human is to experience growth and to sort of let those things that we've accumulated over the years that are no longer useful to us melt away.
Absolutely. And in storytelling, what we talk about is, you know, talking about sharing your failures, your learning,
yes,
your overcoming, there's a whole bunch of stuff there, which is about how, and that's why story is so amazing. And I love it, because there are ways of utilizing story that enable you to share your learning without imposing it on another person. And to me, that is authentic learning for both people.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that is very, very well said. Yes.
Now, going back to just a question too, because you were talking about that, I am who I am. And, you know, what do we say in storytelling about the single story?
Oh, the danger of a single story.
Right.
And you can so easily get stuck in your story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is another point that the articles bring out that I really think needs greater emphasis, which is the way leaders are often trained around storytelling is that here's the formula, right?
Yeah.
You share an experience, you share the struggle, how you overcame it, you share what you learned from it, and then extrapolate that to the current situation. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that until that's the only kind of story structure that you use, right? So every story starts sounding the same. And then what happens is your audience gets wise to what you're doing. And this is where the leader starts being undermined, and where they begin to appear inauthentic because they are just saying the same formula over and over again. And I sometimes wonder, well, how does this come to be? And I think partly is because storytelling training for leaders takes on a certain expression, right? We have a day, we have 2 days, we have a retreat. Let's get it done. And so this is what you can get done in that amount of time. And here's the structure. When we know that there are thousands of stories that leaders could tell in many different forms, in many different ways, using many different plot lines, and to be a truly influential leader means that you need to know more than just one way to tell a story, right?
And you need more than one story. I mean, that's the other thing. You need more than one story.
Right.
Because again, I've seen that happen where I got my story. I know I'm going to go out and I'm going to tell my story. And and again, there's a core story about your business or about who you are and why you're doing your business or whatever. But having that one story that you apply to every single audience that you come across also is inauthentic, because you're not being yourself or your best self in front of those folks, because you haven't thought about them. And I think that's the other part, is being authentic in your presence and in using story. You have to think about who's in the room and how you can connect with them on a human level. And it's funny you talk about that, Karen, because, I was talking to someone else the other day who went to a presentation, and he's a story guy, so he was attuned to it. And he said he was watching someone speak, and this gentleman must have told 40 stories in an hour. And I said, wow, and how did that go? And the person I was speaking to said the audience was gripped.
Yeah.
Because it was just dropping. It was just like, my daughter said this morning, and when I was at work, I did that, and I did this. And so just to your point, you raise a great point, which is we have so many stories to pull from. Mm-hmm. And there's no one constructed or crafted way of telling it. Right. And I think you're right. In the articles, they were talking about that, and how in North America now there's a way of giving a speech, which is stand up, tell your challenge, tell how you overcame it. And then, and again, that might seem inauthentic for sure. But like you say, like, that's why I like story, because you get past all the formula. Once you can learn to listen for stories and hear others, and then bring your own experience to the table.
Right. So to summarize, there's the danger of telling a story with a certain structure all the time, right? Using only one structure. And then the other one is telling the same story over and over and over again, right? The single story. Here's my story, let me tell it to you, as if it's the only one I've got. So what are some of the dangers of the single story?
Well, I think that kind of what they were talking about in the article, which is, this is who I am. This is, take me or leave me. But also, I think it also is a piece around, again, I think that the biggest danger is that you're not paying attention to who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Because again, to be authentic and to bring yourself to a conversation is about listening and paying attention. And if you're just showing up with your one story, I'm not sure it's that different from the elevator pitch.
That's so true. That's so true. And well, it also tells me when somebody gets hooked into a single story, right? Now, let me just tell my story, same story over and over again, is that, like you said, they're not really paying attention to the audience and what the audience needs to hear at that particular time. And your story, the way you've told it before, might not be the right way, to tell it at that particular time, that particular group of people. They may need a completely different story, and if you're not paying attention, then you're going to miss that whole opportunity. Storytelling is about being influential. You can't be influential if you're just on the same old every single time.
It's true. Now, can I ask you something, Karen? Because the one thing that does stick is the idea of being authentic, but how do you be strategic? So we're not just always showing up in a room to inspire people. Sometimes we want them to buy something. Sometimes we want them to do something. Mm-hmm. So how can we be strategic and authentic at the same time, do you think?
Well, if you are, in my humble opinion, if you're always in service to your audience, then that is being strategic, and it is being authentic. Because if you're paying attention to the audience and what they need to hear, the story that they need to be told at that particular time, and you're sharing part of you and your story as a way to address what their need is, then you are being both strategic and authentic, because you're not trying to manipulate them in any way. Right. You are simply there sharing with them from your perspective what is topmost in their minds.
Nice. I like that, because I think that really addresses the issue too around one of the authors said that one of her bosses had called her pathologically authentic because she shared everything that came to mind about everything. And for me, I was thinking that's not about authenticity. That's about neediness. Like that's about oversharing. And
Yeah,
that's not about your audience.
that's true. That is about not having clear boundaries.
Right.
If you don't have clear boundaries, then you're going to get yourself into those kinds of situations, and you yourself might be called a pathological sharer, right? Or what was it, the term that you used?
Pathologically authentic.
Yeah, pathologically authentic. Yes, so I could see how that happens.
Yes.
But that's just because somebody doesn't have clear boundaries.
Right.
And here again, they're not listening and paying attention to the audience. It's all about them.
Yeah. That's right. That's the difference, I think. I think that is the difference.
Right.
That we can be ourselves and be in service, and that's authenticity. I love that. I think that's amazing.
Right. Authenticity is really about being able to walk your talk also, where your behaviors and your actions match.
Yeah.
And so in your storytelling, if your behaviors match the story, your behaviors that you demonstrate after the story is over, match what you say in the story, then that is being very authentic. And that's oftentimes what we forget. We forget that, oh, it's what I do after the talk that is even more important than what I say during the presentation or the stories that I share with the group, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, for me, the piece, and again, this is why I love stories so much, and talking to people about story is because it is also often that is the thing that people remember, and they get to go away and take decisions about their own lives themselves based on, or not, or could be based on the story that you've told or we've told. And so again, as a leader wanting an employee to do something, it's interesting that we think that issuing an instruction is potentially more authentic than maybe sharing a story about our own personal experience. That's not my experience as a leader, because if we continue to treat people as if they don't have their own experiences that they can bring to bear to their own decision making, then we're still treating them like computers. And
right.
and they're human. I know it's not easy, but they are.
I'm teaching an MBA class in business communication with storytelling skills as a part of that. And one of my students was saying to me the other night, this communication stuff takes so much time. Like, I just want to tell somebody what to do. Right. And I'm kind of going, well, there are times when that's really valid. Yeah, you just need to give somebody some direction, right? Just go do this, you'll be fine. But for many other situations, just being very direct, giving an order, giving a directive isn't going to work because people won't understand the context. They want to understand why it's important to you. They won't understand if there's a potential for a mistake, right?
Yeah.
What your experience with making that mistake was, and the things that you learned. That's what I call context. If they don't understand that, then they're likely to take your directive and then go make a mistake.
Yeah. Well, and they certainly won't grow.
Right.
Which again, I mean, as a leader, we want, well, not all of us, I preferred folk who weren't relying on me for a directive every 5 minutes, who could actually take decisions for themselves in the best interests of the company, in the best interests of their team, in the best interests of their own career. I'd rather have those folks. Again, sometimes power feels pretty good, and it's getting people to jump because you can, but that goes very quickly. And I was talking to one of my guests on my show one day about anti-stories. And so what happens is if you're not if you're not somebody that people can kind of authentically connect with, who understand your why and some of the, like you say, the context, then you got to wonder what kind of stories are being told about you and that are going on in your company. There's a lot of time wasted when you don't communicate well, I think.
Oh, yes. This is what I call taking it slow to work fast, right?
Nice, like it.
So, yeah. So you take the time in the beginning to set a good foundation. I share the stories back and forth instead of just a directive. And then we find if leaders, managers are able to do that, their ability to get work done down the line is a lot faster and productivity actually increases. So we talked a lot in that class where the student made this comment about our experiences with, oh yeah, taking the time, communicate well, share the stories up front, because it will cascade. It has a snowball effect where work then becomes much easier down the road and those deadlines are met.
Absolutely. And then also beyond that, you engender loyalty, caring for the leader, about the company. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that we would term soft, which to me are actually the hard stuff.
Yes.
Because it enables people to stay, and it enables people to give a little bit more when they need to, and be part of a creative, dynamic team. So yeah, I love that question though. It's such a good one, which is, it takes so much time. Why should we do it? And the response is, and that's similar to the whole authenticity thing. Yeah, it takes time to get whether you're doing a communication to your company at the end of the year. Personally, I'd rather hear about the things that we did through story than how the shareholders benefited, right, because of the 10% profit increase. Like, who cares? I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Right. Unless I am the shareholder, then I want to hear it. Let me qualify that.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point.
But there are ways of being a leader that you connect. And same with if you're an entrepreneur and you have clients to, I work with entrepreneurs too a lot. And one of the things that they often struggle with is because they're trying to be business-like. And so they are being an expert. And so they're concerned about sharing their failures and their
absolutely
vulnerability.
Right. But we want to do business with other human beings. And so it is so important to share your stories, whether you are an entrepreneur or a leader, because you want connection, you want relationship. That's what makes business work on all levels. And so, yeah, I run across leaders when I'm working with them doing story coaching, who say to me, okay, Karen, let's get this story down so that I can videotape it and be done with it. And I laugh. I'm kind of going, don't think that that's the highest leverage that you could have, from working with this story. So let's talk about how to leverage storytelling and what the benefits and the ROI of storytelling actually are. Because there are times when, yes, you will need to make a video so you can disseminate it to hundreds of thousands of people. And so it's important to make that choice consciously and wisely, right? Not because it's a default position. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that ties in well with one of the articles that talked about authenticity now being the new conformity. So, and being careful, because you think you're being an individual, but really you're not, because everybody else is being authentic too. And that just kind of seems crazy to me. And for me, as somebody who's quite critical of how we educate people and bring them into business, for me, if the new conformity is being human and knowing who you are and sharing it, let's do it. Bring it on.
Yes, I'm all for being human. Yes.
Yay, let's conform to being human. But you stop being authentic, Karen.
No, it's not possible. Oh, golly, that's funny. So, speaking of authenticity, Yeah, I've got art projects going on in the background that I'm doing with clients, and so right after we finish here, I've got to go and start working in the studio. So instead of my formal, spiffy business attire, I'm here in more relaxed, casual studio clothes because, man, I'm on a deadline. I got to get this stuff done.
Nice, nice. Good for
Uh,
you.
right. But so yeah, I was always worried about, well, what are people going to think? Because I didn't, put my business suit on. But you know what? Hey, this is life, and we just have to roll with the punches, right?
Well, and I also think that we're in a new land. We're in a new place. And so right now we're on a Google Hangout. It's called a Hangout for a reason.
Right.
And, corporations are having trouble with their new young folk who come in wanting meaning and wanting to feel like they're doing something important. The corporations are really struggling with that because there's a landscape that's been created, and I think things like being online, and we can create stuff all the time. We could have a hangout every hour and say whatever we want, and that's totally different from how we used to go into a place of work and here's the company line and you stick within that and here's your cubicle. People aren't working that way anymore in the same way. So you raise a good point, which is if you're not being yourself, who are you? Because corporations don't have that to offer you anymore. You can't hide. We can't hide anymore.
No, not like we used to. Yeah, great. All right. So anything else we want to say about authenticity? I'm looking down at the articles here to see if there's anything else that we might have missed that we want to cover. And I'm looking through them now and I'm thinking, hey, I think we've pretty much done it. How about for you? Anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it too. I think it was a great discussion. I think
Great.
we've raised some great, and it'll be interesting to see what people think themselves about authenticity and how it brings value, or does it, in their opinion, create opportunities for conformity? So
Right. I
we'll
know.
see.
Well, yeah, and once the video is posted, we'd love to receive comments, and that would be wonderful. If you want to get in touch with either Lianne or myself, let's go through that really quickly. So, Lianne, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, it's through email, and it's Lianne, Lianne, at verygoodstories.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Great. And tell us a little bit more about the services that you offer to businesses.
Oh, sure. So I call myself a story coach. So I work with people pretty much where they're at, whether they have a presentation they want to create and engage with a particular audience. I also work with businesses on their core story and nonprofits as well. So although we talk about the single story, there is a core story to be had, which demonstrates your impact and the change you're making in the world. So I can also work with you in terms of your internal stories with your employees. So anything story, I'm up for it, because I used to do change management a lot, and I see there's real value in creating a new story and helping roll that out through your organization. So there's buy-in and excitement, and then helping organizations share their own stories, because again, it's not all top down.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Yeah, your background is very similar to mine in terms of organizational development and change work. And people can reach me through my website, juststoryit.com, or my email address, which is Dietz, Karen@gmail.com. And yes, I have a best-selling book, Business Storytelling for Dummies, that everybody could look at if they felt so moved. And not that anybody is a dummy, but it's a good practical how-to book. And then I have a DIY story kit that people can purchase also, which is all the worksheets, templates, and guides that we couldn't fit into the business storytelling book. But these worksheets and guides are available for purchase also on my website. And like you, I do story coaching for leaders and senior executive teams. I also work with marketing departments and help them collect their customer stories. I work with nonprofits, how to tell their stories. I particularly love working with the constituents of nonprofits and helping them share their stories. And so that's really great. So there's a few things that I end up doing.
And don't forget your curation.
Oh, right, my curation, yes. So what I do is I curate all the best articles that I can find on business storytelling. I bring them into a platform. It's completely free. For each article that I bring in, I write a little review for people, why I think people should read it, what they should pay attention to. I may add a suggestion or two or a missing piece that the author might not have thought of, and then you can link to the article and go read it yourself. And it's the largest free library right now on business storytelling that exists in the world. So it's all searchable. So it's wonderful to use, and a number of universities use it. Many people across the world use it as an ongoing resource. So check it out, and you can get to it through my website, or just Google "Just Story It" on scoop.it, and you'll get there right away.
Nice. And there's great stuff there. Highly recommend it.
Great. Thanks, Lianne. All right. Well, time to take a break, right? And go off on the rest of our day. And I so enjoyed talking with you about authenticity, being more authentic, the ins and outs of authenticity. So thanks, Lianne. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you, Karen. I had fun too. And we're going to do another one soon.
Yes.
And I think we've called it "It's Storytelling, Get Over It."
Right. Yes.
We want to talk about something beyond justifying the existence of stories. We want to go a little bit deeper and have a little fun with that.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the conversation. Look forward to chatting to you next time.
Great. Thank you, Lianne. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.